Okay, so Trump is in Beijing right now, and what just happened is not what you think it is. Let me be direct with you. The business executives who flew with him, Elon Musk, Tim Cook, Larry Fink from BlackRock, Steven Schwarzman from Blackstone, their combined companies are worth over $12 trillion. You do not bring people of that caliber into a room unless you have a mega deal to announce. And there is one. But to understand what's actually happening, we need to step back and understand the architecture of global power itself. Let me explain something that you will not hear anywhere else. The relationship between America and China is not a competition. It is a carefully constructed hallucination. And I want you to understand this framework because once you do, everything that happens next becomes predictable. In 1971, Richard Nixon did something that changed the world. He removed the U.S. dollar from the gold standard. The dollar was now worth nothing. It was backed by nothing. So Nixon faced a choice. Let the currency collapse or create demand for it artificially. He chose the latter. He created two hallucinations to prop up the dollar. The first was the petrodollar. Saudi Arabia and OPEC nations would sell oil only in US dollars. The second was China. Nixon opened China to the world economy, turning it into a manufacturing base. China would export goods to the world and accept US dollars in return. This created demand for the currency. But here's what you need to understand. China is not independent. China is a hallucination of a hallucination. It exists only because America created the system that allows it to exist. The moment that system destabilizes, China destabilizes. And China knows this. That is why, despite all the rhetoric about trade wars and AI competition in Taiwan, China and America must work together. They have no choice. The global economy is on the edge of collapse. Both nations are the primary beneficiaries of this system. If it falls, they both fall. Let me take you back to 1972. Nixon visited China. Historians will tell you it was about triangulating between China and the Soviet Union. That is not true. That is just something historians made up. The real reason was the Nixon shock. Once the dollar was unmoored from gold, Nixon needed to create new anchors for it: oil and manufacturing. Those two things kept the dollar alive for 50 years. But the system is breaking down now. China has a problem. It is too dependent on energy from the Middle East. 60% of its oil comes from the Gulf. America is now controlling Venezuela. America is controlling the Middle East through military presence. America is strangling China's energy supply, so China needs a deal. It needs access to the Western Hemisphere. It needs stable energy prices. It needs Nvidia chips to compete in AI. And it needs access to American markets. America has a different problem. America has $39 trillion in debt. The interest rate is 5%. That means the U.S. government pays $2 trillion a year just in interest. Where does that money come from? More borrowing. The system is unsustainable. America needs to transfer that debt somewhere. And where better than China? China has a 40% household savings rate. Chinese people have money. They just do not know what to do with it. Let me address something directly. You will hear about stablecoins, Tether, Circle. These are digital currencies backed by U.S. Treasuries. The plan is to allow Chinese citizens to convert their yuan into stable coins, which are backed by U.S. government debt. This gets around China's closed capital account. Chinese people cannot normally convert yuan to dollars, but they can buy stable coins. And when they do, they are effectively financing American debt. They are buying U.S. Treasuries without knowing it. This is called financial repression. America will lower the interest rate on treasuries to near zero. Then it will pass laws forcing companies like Apple and BlackRock to back their digital currencies with U.S. treasuries. Chinese savers will choose between 0% returns in yuan or 0% returns in stable coins. They will choose stable coins because they trust the dollar more than they trust the yuan. Over 50 years, inflation will destroy the debt. America will have transferred its fiscal problem onto the Chinese people. But why would China agree to this? Because the alternative is worse. Let me explain the Taiwan question. America does not actually need Taiwan, but Taiwan controls the first island chain. It blocks China from the Pacific. If Taiwan unifies with China, it becomes Chinese territory. And then Taiwan can block Southeast Asia from the world. Japan and South Korea get most of their energy through the Strait of Malacca. If Taiwan blocks that route, Japan and South Korea collapse. They will never allow it. So by saying Taiwan belongs to China, Trump transfers power from America to Japan and South Korea. China cannot unify with Taiwan without their permission. This is strategic genius. China wants three things from this grand bargain. First, access to cheap energy from the Western Hemisphere. America now controls Venezuela. China will buy Venezuelan oil through American intermediaries. Second, Nvidia chips. America will allow China to buy advanced semiconductors. Not the most advanced ones, but enough to compete in AI. Third, access to American markets. Chinese manufacturing will flow into America. Chinese companies will invest in American infrastructure. America wants three things. First, access to Chinese financial markets. Chinese savers will buy stablecoins. Their money will finance American debt. Second, control over China's AI development. America has the technology. China has the people and no privacy laws. America will use China as a laboratory for surveillance technology. Third, Chinese manufacturing. Chinese factories will produce goods for America and for Venezuela. Chinese labor will extract resources and create products that Americans do not want to make. Now, I want to be clear about something. I am not saying this is good or bad. I am saying this is how power actually works. Game theory, incentive structures, not morality, not human rights, not sovereignty. These concepts do not appear in the calculations of great powers. They appear in the rhetoric, but not in the decisions. Let me dwell on the semiconductor question for a moment because it is crucial. You will hear people say China will reverse engineer Nvidia chips and steal American technology. This is naive. Semiconductors are not simple devices. They are products of a global supply chain. Silicon comes from Australia. Rare earths come from China. Design happens in California. Manufacturing happens in Taiwan. Assembly happens in the Philippines. Testing happens in Korea. Distribution happens everywhere. No single nation can control this entire chain. As long as America controls the trade network, America maintains technological advantage. China cannot break free from this dependence, and China knows it. So what we are watching unfold right now is a recoupling. After 8 years of trade war, America and China are binding themselves even more tightly together. The trade war was theater. The AI competition is theater. The Taiwan tension is theater. Behind the scenes, the real negotiation is about how to restructure global finance so that America can service its debt and China can access the resources it needs to survive. Jensen Huang, the CEO of Nvidia, was supposed to skip this trip. Then, at the last minute, as Trump was refueling in Alaska, Huang boarded the plane. This is not random. This is a signal. Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, was negotiating the contours of this deal in South Korea with Chinese officials. There was an impasse. China wanted Nvidia chips. America wanted access to financial markets. Then there was a breakthrough. Trump brought Huang as a sign of goodwill. This is how business negotiations work. This is how real power operates. Okay, let me bring this all together. The Trump visit to China is analogous to Nixon's visit in 1972. Both marked radical departures from previous policy. Both were driven by structural economic necessity, not ideological preference. Both created new frameworks for global order. Nixon created the petrodollar and manufacturing-based trade. Trump is creating the stablecoin and financialized integration. The grand bargain will happen. Within days, we will see announcements about Chinese investment in America. We will see commitments about Nvidia chip sales. We will see frameworks for financial integration. And we will see strategic language about Taiwan that signals American acceptance of eventual unification. This is not defeat for America. This is pragmatism. America cannot sustain its debt without access to Chinese capital. China cannot survive without access to American markets and technology. They need each other. The system requires both. Now, I want you to question everything I am saying. I want you to test these predictions against reality. I want you to watch what happens over the next few weeks and months. If the grand bargain emerges as I've described it, then this analysis is correct. If it does not, then I am wrong. This is not prophecy. This is pattern recognition based on structural incentives. The world is being reshaped right now. Most people are not even watching. They are distracted by the theater, the rhetoric about trade wars and military competition and ideological struggle. But beneath that theater, the real game is being played. It is a game about debt, about energy, about access to capital and resources. It is a game about who controls the global supply chains. It is a game about whether the current system can be reformed or whether it will collapse. And here is the thing that should concern you most. If this grand bargain works, if America and China successfully integrate their financial systems and their supply chains, then the system might survive for another 20 or 30 years. But the underlying problem does not go away. America still has unsustainable debt. China still has a system built on export-driven growth. The fundamental contradictions remain. They are just being postponed. And when the reckoning comes, it will be much worse because the integration will be much deeper. I'm Professor Jiang. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and watch very carefully what happens next. Because history does not repeat, but it rhymes. And right now, it is rhyming very loudly indeed.